So asking for a letter of recommendation is something students often really stress about. Nobody wants to be rejected. They often kind of hype it up to be a very stressful event. When there's a lot you can do to make sure you have a positive letter of rec and to make sure the teacher is willing to give you a recommendation, because there is some anxiety. You're asking this teacher who's very busy to take time out of his or her day to write positive things about you. So I totally understand the stress. Ideally, when you're applying to Penn, this person who you're asking taught you junior year, or maybe also senior year. Sophomore year could work. Penn mentions that they want junior or senior year, but sophomore year works fine. Sophomore year actually would be better than senior year. A senior year instructor who's only known you for a couple months, that's not maybe so good compared to a teacher that you've been in touch with throughout sophomore year and hopefully through junior and senior year, whether or not you took a class with him or her. So you're looking at 2 letters of rec. If there's a third one that brings something unique to the table, that would work too. I'll talk about some ninja strategies, some top secret strategies to looking at the application, your application recommendations. To look at your recommendations, even though you're not really supposed to, you can get a pretty good idea of what's written about you through a little strategy I developed, trademark David Richard. I'll talk about that in a second. But first, just asking for the rec is a hugely stressful event for a lot of juniors, a lot of seniors in high school, and I don't like that at all. So to alleviate some stress, you should know the teacher outside the context of the classroom a little bit, or after class. A good way to do this would be just to ask to meet. So maybe the teacher has a certain interest in an area. You could research that yourself. Hopefully it's a genuine interest of your own, and then ask him or her, can we talk about this after class? I really would love to hear your thoughts on this issue. So let's say for history class, you guys just studied the 1920s, and that's an interest of yours. You really love F. Scott Fitzgerald like me. You could say, let's talk a little bit more about how the Great Gatsby signifies and embodies the entire era. A little bit more about the Lost Generation, Ernest Hemingway. I'd love to talk about this a little bit more. I have a couple other questions. Maybe you can suggest some resources for me to look at this weekend. Now, if you're a student asking for more work in a topic the teacher obviously likes, if the teacher is teaching it, his or her maybe presumably entire life, and you're asking for more information about that, who does that? You're going to stand out. It's how you get best of career recommendations, really, really top-notch, incredible praise from the teacher. So go the extra mile, and you'd be amazed just by talking for an hour after class how much that can positively affect your recommendation. And maybe, at the end of the time you're talking about, whatever kind of subject area related to the classroom, subject area related to the teacher's focus, maybe talk a little bit about your personal life, your interests outside of school. If the teacher doesn't know much about you, mention that after this I am going to babysit my little sister, or I am going to play soccer, or I am going hiking, or I am working as an underwater scuba suit iron welder, which a friend of mine is doing right now. Funny career, right? But something incredibly interesting as that would help you stand out even more. And then hopefully after this, after you've really bonded with the teacher a little bit, gotten to know him or her, and the teacher realizes that you're pretty legit if you're asking to take on extra work, the person's probably pretty flattered. Wait a couple weeks, say I really enjoyed the talk, maybe talk a little bit more. Don't look like you're too robotic or scheming. You never want the teacher to think you just talked to him so you could butter him up, make him like you more before you ask for the rec. And usually that would never happen, but make sure that you don't look too scheming with this. You probably enjoyed the discussion, so maybe talk a little bit more, and then a couple weeks later, month or two later, ask for their letter of rec. Enough time has passed. He or she still has an awesome positive impression of you. Maybe you kept talking about whatever you jumped off on in that initial discussion. Maybe you kept talking about the 1920s and Ernest Hemingway, which is awesome. And then a couple weeks later, you ask for a rec. Awesome rec. So going back to that ninja strategy, that top secret strategy about peeking at your letters of rec, your recommendations should not be seen by the applicants. They're given a lot more weight if you never see what's written about you. That makes sense, right? So some teachers share those with you even though they're technically not supposed to, and the university doesn't want them to. You definitely don't want to mark that you've looked at the recommendations. But like I said, there's a way you can get a pretty good feel for what was written about you. Before you ask for the letter of recommendation for the college, ask for a letter of recommendation that you can use for employment purposes, for scholarship purposes. Ask to get a bunch of copies on school letterhead. You have the letter of recommendation, pretty much, right? And then when you ask for the university, the college letter of recommendation, I mean, you like to think that this teacher would maybe tweak it a little bit for the University of Pennsylvania, but chances are the letter is about exactly the same. You know, why not? If you already have a letter of recommendation for this student that, if you're, say you're the teacher that, you know, says a lot of great things, slap the University of Pennsylvania, you know, in a couple segments of it and mail it away and you're good to go. So if you ask for a generic letter of recommendation before you ask for your university specific letter of recommendation, you're probably looking at the recommendation that's going to Penn, going to the other schools, or something so close to it, it's practically the same thing. So don't worry about asking for a letter of rec. It's pretty easy. Just be authentic. You're not going up to somebody and in 1 second asking for it. You know, your whole approach, the way you say it, the way I've had students worry about, you know, if I use this word, if I say letter of rec versus letter of recommendation, maybe letter of rec will show I'm cooler or more casual, but maybe at the same time it won't show that I'm professional. So the actual wording doesn't matter at all. What matters is that you know the person has a positive impression of you, and that you're not weird about the whole thing. You're not going up to, you know, propose to somebody anything. Just make it a real, organic, real discussion between two people, and get rid of the hype. Get to know the person. Have him or her realize you're awesome because you are, and your letter of rec will reflect that.